Welcome to the European Parliamentary Research Service podcasts.
We live in an era of rapid and bewildering change, so we need to be ready for the unexpected. Dive with us into the key findings of the latest ESPAS Global Trends Report and see what choices and decisions our political leaders may be asked to make in the next 5 years and how they could shape the kind of Europe we'll live in by 2040.
Armed conflicts, economic wars, deepening environmental crises, democratic backsliding, social inequalities.
Yes, we live in a world of increasing complexity, fragmentation and confrontation. A world where stability, prosperity and democracy are no longer a given.
So at a time when many global trends point to a troubled and disruptive future, even if there are also reasons for optimism, and as the EU enters a new institutional cycle, it's timely to look ahead to the strategic choices EU politicians may be asked to make, and how these may shape the long-term direction of the Union.
That's what the fourth Global Trends Report, published earlier this year by the European Strategy and Policy Analysis System, aims to do. ESPAS brings together 9 EU institutions and bodies committed to thinking longer term about the challenges and opportunities facing Europe, and through foresight, help policymakers come up with the right policies.
The report, entitled Choosing Europe's Future, doesn't suggest prescriptive policy solutions. Instead, it offers incoming leaders of the EU institutions and their teams a tool to navigate the way ahead. So, what are the key findings?
The report identifies 10 global trends that could impact the EU most in the next 10 to 15 years. And geopolitical shifts is a major one. We are seeing a world moving away from cooperation and integration to increasing fragmentation and friction, and war. And new threats are emerging in areas like hybrid warfare, disinformation, or the battle for primacy in outer space.
Geopolitical fragmentation and the transition to climate neutrality are, in turn, creating new threats to economic growth. Moreover, technological rivalry between major powers like the US and China, combined with the emergence of new regional blocs, are likely to affect global trade relations.
There are also demographic challenges linked to Europe's relative population decline and aging trend, which will put extra pressure on job markets and fiscal sustainability.
Furthermore, with climate change and environmental degradation accelerating and the risk of climate tipping points increasing, the EU will certainly feel the effects, and it will need to coordinate efforts internationally if it's to make further progress.
Closely linked to this is the energy transition. Renewable energy is gaining ground, but the use of fossil fuels continues to rise. In its shift to clean energy, the EU will need to overcome some critical obstacles and deal with geopolitical tensions over critical resources.
Next up, the quest for a more equal world. Beyond economic inequalities, growing disparities in access to education, technology, healthcare, and even climate justice are fueling social tensions, including in Europe. Addressing these inequalities will be crucial for maintaining social cohesion and safeguarding democracy.
The deployment and adoption rates of new technologies are accelerating, and technological convergence is increasing, another major trend. The rapid rise of AI and other key technologies are increasing expectations and transforming industries and societies. And there'll be competition to lead the race and set global standards.
On health, the COVID pandemic showed us how crucial a well-resourced health sector is, and how we need to be prepared for another future such event. With global threats like antimicrobial resistance, the EU will surely need to keep innovating in healthcare.
Another major trend is urbanization. More people are living in cities, and technology is reshaping how we work, live, and learn. This brings new opportunities, but also the risk of job losses and skill gaps.
And finally, there are increasing and sustained threats to democracy, including efforts to undermine elections and media freedom. But while the trend towards democratic backsliding continues, technology is also enabling new forms of participatory democracy, and increasing engagement offers hope for the future.
Now, arising from these 10 trends, the report looks at where they intersect And from these, the authors put forward 6 strategic choices political leaders may need to make to steer the EU through challenging times. Stay with us.
Firstly, the EU will need to choose its geopolitical game. In a volatile world, hard power and defence are playing an increasingly central role in international relations. But developing the EU as a truly smart power will also require paying attention to broader dimensions of influence. Soft power will continue to be a crucial tool to secure the EU's global influence.
A second strategic choice relates to the future of the green agenda, now seemingly at a crossroads. The EU will need to think hard about how to build on its commitment to the ongoing transition. The accelerating trend of climate change points to the need for fast and resolute action to avoid the worst effects. But how to do this without endangering competitiveness and socio-economic stability? So managing this transition effectively and fairly will be an important factor in maintaining public support for the green agenda.
A third strategic choice the report identifies is to what extent are EU policymakers willing to accept economic risks and frictions in exchange for greater geopolitical and technological sovereignty. And related to that, a fourth choice is our current economic model in Europe fit for purpose, or does it need a major overhaul?
In a world of rising protectionism, technological rivalry and geopolitical fragmentation, the EU economy is likely to be subject to new shocks and risks. At the same time, these, combined with the net zero transition, could create new opportunities for growth.
So a careful assessment of what's strategically necessary, what is economically viable and politically achievable in the near term will be necessary, as well as rethinking how we measure success to go beyond the traditional concepts of prosperity.
EU policymakers will also need to decide how to innovate in Europe's technology sector to enhance its global competitiveness, while regulating technological innovation in a way that delivers economic benefits while protecting citizens. This is the fifth strategic choice.
And number 6, the EU will also need to decide what type of social contract it offers citizens to safeguard democracy, prevent social fragmentation, and keep people engaged in the ongoing green and digital transitions.
These 6 strategic choices will go some way to defining the Europe we'll live in the future. And determined and united action across all EU areas of activity is key to boost our chances of leaving a better world to the next generation.
According to the ESPAS report, integrating long-term goals into near-term decision-making can increase our chances of success, and there are grounds for optimism. Let's hear the recent chair of ESPAS, Stephen Quest.
One of the key messages of the report is that the EU can have and does have agency in choosing and acting, that there are choices, things are possible, and that the choices that are or are not made will have consequences. And that even if quite a lot of what we see in the report has a negative tinge to it, there are also aspects where we do see opportunities, and we highlight these in the report, and where we can have a positive impact.
Today, the EU finds itself in the midst of global trends, which, if left unattended, could generate interlocking crises at home and abroad. Doing nothing is the worst option. As the report says, embedding strategic foresight in policymaking can help us anticipate the future and prepare better for the future we want, rather than being driven by events. So now is the time to make some new strategic choices.
Want to know more? Check out the full report on the EPRS website or in our app. And you can also view all ESPAS activities at www.espas.eu.
This is a European Parliamentary Research Service podcast.
Thanks for listening.